Hello, and welcome back to today's American Flyer Trains for the continuation of the rebuild of number 370, the GM American Flyer Diesel Road Switcher, a GP-7, a Type 1 from 1950. In this segment, I want to wrap up some house cleaning items around the reverse unit. The reverse unit has been cleaned, disassembled, cleaned, serviced, and reassembled and repositioned on the chassis. It has not been tested, and I won't do that until I can get the rear truck mounted because I want to see the electrical flow coming in from all sources. And I want to wrap that up and show you what has been done before we move on to the front motor. But before we go any further, I want to wrap up a few things about this rear truck. And I know if you've been watching this video series, and I apologize, you're probably saying, how much more can we talk about a dummy truck? Well, this one continues to fascinate me, as does the entire piece, the entire locomotive, because it was so early in the Gilbert manufacturing of the diesels. It has, I think, some unusual things. But I want to revisit this rear chassis. I want to revisit 6 or 7 things and summarize them about this chassis in no particular order. First of all, the factory service manual for this particular 370 shows the dummy truck as being sheet metal, and it's called a wheel and chassis assembly. They don't show it as a die-cast truck. I've already pointed out this one is die-cast, but as interesting as it is die-cast, it's also a motor chassis. It is designed to hold a motor, which gives us an indication right away that A.C. Gilbert manufactured these trains with some very expensive parts. He was using something intended to hold a motor just to be a set of wheels and axles in kind of a dummy unit. I've already pointed out also that it's held in by yoke assembly, which is unusual for a dummy truck. Most of them are kind of semi-permanently attached to the chassis itself. This one is held in and pinched in by yoke unit or assembly, which means it's very easy to disassemble and remove from the chassis for cleaning and servicing. I've already cleaned and serviced this one. Of course, it was washed. It was cleaned with some AutoZone brake cleaner. All the contact wheels, were polished. It was wiped clean with alcohol, and then it was treated with a very light coating, which hadn't quite cured yet, of CRC 226, simply for preservation moving forward. Also kind of unusual is that both axles are what are called gear axles. They're intended to be able to take on a gear that would mesh up to the worm gear. These have to be more expensive parts than just a simple, smooth, tapered axle. So again, we see A.C. Gilbert using a more expensive piece of equipment just to give this locomotive another set of wheels, whereas in later versions of other pieces of equipment, and possibly this one as well, we see that being replaced with a lot less expensive, I think, sheet metal. In relation to the axles, I just noticed not too long ago that on the interior you can see brass bushings for the axles. I don't think I've seen very many of my diesels have these brass bushings, which to me ought to give this a really good lifetime. These axles are as tight as can be. There is there's a little bit of up and down movement, but it's got to have some movement because it's got to move, right? So this one was serviced, as I mentioned, and it includes the oiling of the bushings, putting oil down there and letting it soak and drop into the bushings. The direction of both trucks kind of fascinates me. Usually on a diesel in the A.C. Gilbert inventory that has 2 motors, a dual motor unit, you'll see that the commutator on the armatures for the front and rear motors face each other. And they're on the interior and they face each other. This one, being a single motor, has the commutator facing forward, not toward the interior. Well, when I mount this truck, it would, if it had a motor, have the commutator right here on this end. So it's going to be mounted like this. So it would be facing, again, away, instead of facing into the other motor, it would face away from the other motor. Kind of unusual, I think. But anyway, just a little anomaly that just kind of fascinated me. Another piece of equipment that I think A.C. Gilbert was kind of giving away is that I discovered that this end of the motor right there, you can see the top of it with a little bit of shine to it, right there, is a thrust plate. Now there's not one in this end, and I hope I didn't drop it out on the disassembly, but of course since there's no armature in there, it doesn't make any difference. But what would make me think that what A.C. Gilbert did is go ahead and pre-install thrust plates and then pick this from the inventory to be a dummy truck. So again, there's another piece of equipment. I kind of consider it the axles, the thrust plate, the truck itself as being kind of a giveaway and being used kind of out of its intended purpose.